Welcome to For the Record, an unfiltered view on current trends and timeless advice for surviving in the aesthetics industry. Whether you're an injector, practice owner, sales rep, or marketer, it's time to set the record straight. Each week we cut through the chaos and showcase diverse perspectives and winning ideas from the best minds in the industry. I'm your host, Dr. Tiphany Hall, Chief Growth Officer at Aesthetic Record. Now, let's get started on this week's episode. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of For the Record. And today we're going to dive deep into business. We have with us what might be like the quintessential expert of business, in my opinion, a guy who I've followed for years and have been trying to get him on this podcast since the day it started. And we finally wore him down. But he is the CEO of ProMD Health, which is a massive group all across Maryland and other states. They are doing men's health. They're also doing just general aesthetic services, weight loss, really all the things. He is thought of as one of the leaders in business, a big game business faculty member, really helped to launch that program years ago, has an MBA, has a genius mind, is big in the AI movement right now, but also talking to people all across the country about how to run a good business and why businesses are connected to patient outcomes when we have to do good at both and not just be one or the other. Also does a lot of cool charitable things in his community and has won some awards as well for his business prowess, and just an all-around really awesome guy and someone who I think is really doing things that are just innovative, moving and shaking, all the right things. I'm a huge fangirl, but welcome to our show, Scott Melamed. I'm glad to have you.
Thank you so much, Tiphany. You are too kind to me. I'm blushing on this podcast, and that's never a good start. It's just trying to open me up so we talk about all the things.
It's always a good start. Well, I remember at Galderma, like in 1997 when I was there, 10 years ago, we would talk about who do you want to talk to, who do you want to follow, who's the kind of person that's doing all the things. It was like, Scott. You've had a fan club for years and transitioned from that early days to now, what do you guys have, like a gazillion, 30 locations, so many locations?
Yeah, and we're opening 20, number 20.
Number 20. Like, just think about that. I mean, in 10 years of me knowing you, 20 locations, yeah. I mean, a brand that's huge, a national brand. You're also in the forefront of research. I mean, doing things like in the business world around how do you grow a big practice, a successful practice when no one's doing it very well unless they have a ton of investment money, which I know that we don't have us either. Nope. So I think it's just you're at a really cool place in your career where, I mean, you're like the Midas touch, but I do love the fact that you don't have any investment money, that you're doing it all from just making your profit as you go. We are also a hard line in the sand about that. So we're on the island, you and I on this island together. But I would love to just kind of dig into
it is an island some days that we know.
And our competitors are getting hundreds of millions of dollars of investment money. But you know what, Scott, we're going to see it through. But anyway, I digress. I want to start with kind of your background. I know you've got a really colorful entrepreneurial background and doing a lot of really cool things. But how'd you get here to ProMD Health, all these years later?
Yeah, I mean, I started, pretty simple as a fireman and medic in New York. Went to Johns Hopkins for undergrad, then the medical school. I was a stem cell engineer, pipetting stuff I couldn't see into other stuff I couldn't see and hoping that my Western blot worked. Wasn't for me. So I did what all cool men in their 20s do and joined a slow pitch softball team where I met a bunch of old men who told me that consulting existed. So I'd never heard of it. Then I went into business and strategy consulting for Accenture and a few other firms. I was in life science and healthcare strategy. I learned finance and business through them. And then kind of fell into aesthetics when a buddy of mine was starting a group with this guy that none of us had ever heard of, Jan Trokel. And launched the initial YLIF network. Met my current partner, George Gavrila, through that. And ProMD was kind of born on, the idea that if we apply sound business practices to aesthetic medicine, we would allow providers to still hang their own shingle in a world where everybody wants medical providers to do anything but provide quality care.
Yeah.
And we've kind of stuck true to that. Every day, I tell my team, from the bottom up that the reason why they are so important is because they allow ProMD to make choices instead of hard decisions, right? And when we have a good, sound business, we can deploy our capital to community initiatives or staff training or, bring in new groups of patients. But if we don't have the business capital to do that, then we have to make hard decisions about carrying inferior products or being understaffed or all the things that business owners absolutely hate about owning a business.
I mean, you just nailed it. I love that deploying capital. So I have a consulting background as well. And I think if you've been a consultant, the stakes are so incredibly high that someone's saying, my business is riding on your choices and your decisions, that you just learn early on that you don't have a choice. Like, you got to figure that shit out. I think you get cut from a different cloth by just being forged in the fire in some way. I had clients like Walmart who were like, we'll just move on to the next person. You have to fight for your business. But I
Yeah.
do
Oh
think
yeah. Churn and burn.
and Accenture is like the whole, if you guys don't know, they're listening. Accenture is like one of the big four. It's a huge group. I worked with them for years when I was doing consulting. And they are, I mean, they churn out really smart, intelligent, great business people, which obviously you are. But going from that to aesthetics is probably a little different world. And the aesthetics world is different. I think you nailed it. We don't run good
Oh
businesses
man,
here. What do you, and you're out touring the country
what
and
a
you're looking at all these
space.
people. Yeah. What do you see? Like, what are the things that you're like, oh my gosh, how can this be perpetuating this far into this industry? Like, what's going on? What are your hot buttons?
Yeah. So for me, I think it depends where a practice is, right? Like we're in this really cool industry where it's still so entrepreneurial, but the main investment in knowledge and education and time isn't on the business, right? Everybody is like, we got to train everybody to be the best provider we can, and that's important. But there's just such a neglect of business health that it's so strange because when I travel and I meet all these great, really smart, wickedly smart doctors, right? And they're all in this same, I call it this weird doctor tribe, right? Where like you and me, if we were being consultants, if I wanted to learn how to fly a plane, I'd find like the best pilot I could and I'd have them teach me. But I go to these doctors and, if they want to fly a plane, they have like a buddy who's a doctor that flies planes sometimes as a hobby. And because he's a doctor, they got a doctor to doctor teach me how to fly this plane. And it's been permeated in the space for so long that it's mind blowing to people that they can go to conferences like yours and talk about business, or they can learn from going to South by Southwest, or they can learn about patient experience, from the 5-star restaurant that they take their spouse to. So really teaching them to become a consumer again instead of a provider, and learn from their everyday life about the experiences that we get to experience by going to other people's businesses, and then adapting them to the aesthetic space in a way that's sane, sound, healthy, and ethical. So you might go to a restaurant and you're not going to adopt the steak knife into your OR, but you might adopt the fact that the tablecloth had the initials of the chef on it, right? Or just all these little reminders, or the service excellence, or the hand signals. There's a book called Unreasonable Hospitality that I recommend everybody in our space read, because it's really the perfect intersection of what we try and do, which is match a luxury experience at scale.
Well, I want to talk about that for a second, because even just today here in Aesthetic Record, and this happened to me, how do you get people to care about things at that extreme level? So I'm like you, Scott, that if someone has a question, I want to go to the end of the earth to get the answer, or to teach my team to get the answer. It's never no, it's how. It's never, we can't, it's like, here's how we're going to do it instead. How do you teach people at scale, especially as the size of your organization grows? I mean, every year it gets bigger and bigger, to care with that such extreme hospitality mindset like a Ritz-Carlton would have, or Four Seasons, because it's just not innate in some people, and they could be a great provider, but to your point, so what? So is everybody else. Like, how do you teach someone to cling to that and to be able to communicate that message out to your patients?
Yeah, I mean, it starts in the hiring process, right? Like incorporating that into the ethos of who you're going to even interview, right? Like adding that, it's as important to me that we have something about being dedicated to the experience and the details and the minutia in our job description as we do that. You better be licensed in the state we're hiring for. Right. And then as we go through that process, I like to do 16 personalities testing and kind of see how they're going to fit into the org, make them meet people from the ground up. And just like in consulting, we do, it's almost like a stress interview where, I'm really judging how you're checking in for your interview and how you're treating my reception staff, as much as I'm treating when I walk you around, the firm handshake you give to the other providers. And then, sharing the vision and having it posted everywhere that we can. Right. I heard a great quote the other day. It was, the vision is the picture that leads the team to the passion, right? Like if you don't have that picture of the vision of the future that you want, and it's not propagated, how can you expect a team to be passionate about answering a phone or picking up a candy wrapper? Explaining to them that, we know through NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and through subliminal study that, patients notice those things, and it gives them, attention to detail. We're in a game of millimeters, where if our, providers don't put the toxin in the exact millimeter where it's supposed to go, it's game over for that patient for the next 3 months. So, how can they expect to get millimeter level care if we're missing the big things like not dusting our windows?
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's such a, if you look at our skill set training that you mentioned in the very beginning, everyone's training on skill set all the time. Like we know about cheek filler. I mean, heck, I could probably inject. I'm sure you could too. Like I've been to enough of them now, enough cadaver labs. Like I feel pretty confident that I can
Yeah,
probably figure this out. But I think the business part of it is such a unique skill set because we don't ask experts to teach us. I do a lot of courses. I have a thing tonight. I'm sure you do. You teach all the time as well. We have a formal education in this. We do this is what we do. Scales our thing. Like it's kind of our bread and butter. Like you're like they're a doctor. We do this, and I do think there's this disconnect between asking people like us because we're not clinicians, and I often wonder like I don't tell you how to inject. I would come to you for that skill set. Equally, you should come to us for the business part of it. And there's still something weird here in our industry where there's like a rub between that of like I should be asking a
yeah.
nurse
Well,
provider who also is an owner. I don't understand. Maybe you have better insight.
yeah. I mean, everybody has an opinion on marketing, right? And the thing is, it's marketing to me is kind of like religion, right? Like you can't prove it's good, you can't prove it's bad because there's so many things that go into it that you just can't quantify with direct ROI as much as we try and do. So even when we ask, how did you hear about us? They might say Google or they might say this Instagram ad, but really they saw us at a 5K. They listened to a radio ad 3 times, and 2 of their girlfriends' mothers told them that they went there and it was great. But when they come in, they click the little button, and then that piece of the marketing gets the ROI. So if you're really looking at granular marketing like that, you're missing the big picture. And what I find really interesting, and what took me a long time to understand is what we sell, right? Like what is our in aesthetic? What is the product? Like I can ask a million people and get a million answers, right? Like, oh, we sell injectables, or we sell lasers, or we sell hormone therapy, or we sell an experience, or we sell confidence, or And I've lately, in the past couple of years, came up with my own decision that's guided a lot of kind of my direction. And my belief is that we sell a subjective opinion of the patient's subjective opinion based on the subjective opinion of their friends. Right. And that, what I really mean there is that, the patient wants to look better, which is subjective. The provider is going to do their best to make them look their opinion of better based on what the patient told them is better. And then that patient is going to go ask their friends how it looks. And the friends are going to say good or bad, which is a subjective opinion. So with that mindset, every person in the practice influences the aesthetic outcome. Right. So, to me, the experience that they have at check-in is going to be the difference between when they look in that mirror at the end, if they're looking at a 6 out of 10 result or a 9 out of 10 result, because it's subjective, and the feeling that they have sitting in that chair is as important to their subjective interpretation of how they look as is the outcome itself. So, when we're talking about passion, I really make my front desk believe that they are part of the aesthetic outcome that happens in the room. They are part of the actual treatment, modality. They're a tool that the provider has to leverage in order to get the desired outcome, which is that patient's subjective opinion of themselves to increase.
I love that. I'm sitting here as you're talking about mine's just like racing. Because I think about, let's say you're in oncology, you have cancer. No matter what the front desk person says, if I'm cured, I'm cured, right? If I come back with my clean scans, she can say whatever she wants about me. I'm cancer free. You are so spot on that every person that you interact with is framing that opinion for you. I mean, if you're the patient, they're framing it for you before you ever leave the office. Like, are they saying, "Gosh, you look so great," or "Oh, did you get a little bruise?" Whatever the experience is, before you even leave that practice, you've already in your mind had some kind of validation of what just happened to you. And I think that is, I worked for dealers for years. Everyone's heard me tell the story about the little black dress. If I try on a black dress and I come out and everyone's like, ooh, oh, he looks so great. Everyone's like, oh, I want to get that. Oh, she looks so good. I'm walking out feeling like $1,000,000. It could look like complete trash on me, but because I've been validated over and over again, I think it's great. Versus I walk out alone shopping and it could look like $1,000,000. I'm like, well, I don't know if it's good or not. I'm not going to buy it because no one's here to validate me. I think we have this little black dress idea. It's the same thing in our industry. And to your point, everybody in the entire practice is part of that journey. So I love that. I love this like subjective of the subjective of the subjective. That's not confusing at all. That's not hard to do. Sure.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
So,
goodness gracious.
you mentioned oncology, and I joke with my team, and when I teach about medical specialties in terms of difficulty, right? And on one side, we have oncology, which the expectation is like, hey, we tried, right? And then on the far opposite end of that spectrum, we have plastic surgery, which is like, hey, we're going to give you a very detailed result just the way you want it, but I hope you like sailing because you're going to have some anchor scars. And then on even farther right of that is what we do in medical aesthetics, which is like, if we're off by a millimeter, you're going to go on Yelp and tell everybody that your left eyebrow was a millimeter higher than your right eyebrow. And you're going to write a letter to my mom that I'm the worst provider that's ever provided. The expectation and the demand on our providers to achieve excellence over and over again in a subjective area where the definition of excellence is unknown because it's owned by the person sitting in the chair is unreal. So that what the front desk and what the medical assistant and what billing and what everybody can do is allow that provider to be human. Because if when that patient checks in, oh, I'm sorry you had to wait for parking here, we're going to validate it for you. Or, oh, I'm sorry it's raining, I'm going to give you an umbrella when you leave. Or, oh, you look beautiful today, Mrs. Smith. Let me walk you back personally. This is, Tori, she's going to be great. You're going to be so well taken care of. Right? Every process that's seamless allows that provider to err a little bit more on the procedural side or their interpretation of what the patient wants. Right. And we all know, like, if I walk into a place and I'm covered in rain and I had to wait for parking and I'm in a bad mood, the last thing I want to do, is look at myself in the mirror and judge myself. Right. So the cognitive confirmation bias of being in a good mood when that mirror is handed to you after the result is just as important, as the millimeters at ProMD anyway.
And so is your wallet. I think when you're happy, you spend more money. Like you're eager.
Absolutely.
Think about people who are drunk,
And
right?
the
Like,
value, right?
yes.
The perceived value paradigm changes. When you're in a bad mood, if you spend money, you're upset you spend money. If you're in a good mood, the perceived value of that spend is automatically higher. We know this from every psychology experiment, every business experiment has been repeated over and over. Mood matters. You know it. You do it better than anybody at Aesthetic Next. It's the vibiest conference in Conference Town.
Well, we try, but it's interesting. We're launching a malpractice captive here with Aesthetic Record. So I've been living and eating and sleeping and breathing malpractice claims. Right, it's a huge deal. And you see in every case, not every, but in many cases, if the physician or the experience was better, they would not have had the claim. Like they might have still had a botch issue, but if the person had even tried to help or attempted to help or done anything at all to make the experience better, the person would have not gone through with the claim, or it would have been a lesser claim, like a small payout. That experience, I mean, you're right, it's buying you grace. I mean, it's buying you a chance to have a margin of error because people, they're so okay with what's going on. They're so excited about the experience that if you are a millimeter off, it's not the end of, it's not great, obviously, but it's not the end of the world. You buy some mercy and some human, some humanness experience that you don't get. If everyone's an asshole and then you're not a great provider, it's a bad day for all of us. But if, everyone's amazing and I have a little bit of an off day as an injector, I can buy that back, right? Because there is some kind of a grace that that I'm earning there with my team. I agree with you so much, and I think we don't do a good job of that here. We think if we're a great injector, we bought ourselves grace, and I do think the experience, people will go to a less great, a less good outcome. They'll go there over and over again if they love the experience versus going somewhere who's
Yeah.
amazing but the experience
And,
sucks. Like
and it's
look at
it's how they perceive the outcome,
yeah.
right? Like a 9 out of 10 outcome in a 6 out of 10 experience is a 7, right? And an 8 out of 10 outcome and a 9 out of 10 experience is a 9. So, we're literally dealing with how people view themselves, right? And to some degree, everybody looks at themselves differently depending on their mood or their sodium intake the night before or a million other factors that affect our face, right? So, talk about hitting a moving target.
And the
I don't know,
experience is the outcome. Like I think the experience is the outcome. I think part of
yeah.
getting a great lip injection is also how did I feel when I was there? What was the follow-up plan? Did I have swelling after the fact? Did I know I shouldn't go eat salty food? Did I know I shouldn't have margarita? Like I think the outcome and the experience are so intertwined that we forget someone
And
looking amazing is not an outcome. It's all the things together that are the outcome.
right. And the thing that I try and teach people the most is that the better your experience, the more repeat customers you'll get. The more repeat customers you get, the more time you will get under the syringe, the better you will get. Like the reason why all providers are top tiers is because they've done tens of thousands of cases, which they would never be able to do without driving that volume. And you're never going to get volume at scale without a consistently good experience, because then you're just going to get the price shoppers that'll go anywhere.
Well, and scale is a different animal, as we all know. So I'm curious for your injectors, estheticians, all of your providers that are in your world. How are they trained? Like, how do you bring a group that large together to train them? Is it in the practice individually, or is it as an overall group? How do you make
Yeah.
that happen and
So,
actually execute?
their new hire process is like literally like a boot camp, like we would have to do in consulting. So like we train providers from greenfield, and we don't, poach anybody or take, I really don't like to take experienced providers unless they've like moved. So they come in from Concentra, they come in from the ER, they come in from the ICU. You're hungry, you're cold, you're tired. And they start with didactic. They do a 4 week online didactic. We have Skyla, who's our awesome trainer. She's remote. Used to be an employee here, followed her husband on his fellowship, so now she's our remote trainer until she comes back. So she's had countless hours, hundreds of hours under the syringe, so she can really kind of teach them, the muscles of the face, and sit with them and watch a deep plane facelift on video, which we make all of our providers do. So it's, they're going in blind. Right. If you haven't seen a deep plane facelift, ideally live, but not everybody can schedule that. At least you have to watch one so you understand, what we mean when we're talking about the planes of the face. Then they come in, we do kind of 2 weeks of watch training, and they inject our dummy heads, which we get from Amazon. If anybody wants those, they're like $30. Then we do some ballistic gels, just the, stuff that behaves like tissue. And then they'll do usually somewhere between 3 and 6 weeks of hands-on model injections and live cases as they're shadowing around and learning everything. And then before they graduate, they will spend some time at the front. They'll spend some time as an MA. And then ideally, they'll either have to inject George or myself with everybody watching to make sure they can handle the pressure. So
Yeah,
I just had my disport done by trainee 2 weeks ago. So we'll see how it sets in.
I think that last step there is probably a little nerve wracking in front of everybody having to
Yeah,
inject.
that's the
But
point.
I love the 4 weeks of at home study. I think we don't. If we could do more in didactic, we could do less on the backside of like all the crazy training that we do. Even aesthetic next. I'm like, some of it, guys, figure this out on your own. You have the internet. You don't need to come here to learn this. You can go
Yeah.
online and find this education. But I think people obviously learn in different ways. But I love the idea that they're coming through, like they're matriculating from online to hands on to doing the MA work, doing the front
Yeah.
desk work.
We've tried so many different ways, and we used to just bring people in, like watch one, do one, teach one. What we found is like if you don't have the anatomy background, what are you watching? You're just watching a needle go into a face over and over and over again. So we were getting a lot of, what I call either paint by numbers or like landmark injectors, where they can only inject if the anatomical landmarks are there. So then we would have to retrain them out of that so that they understood the facial anatomy. And because, you have to be able to visualize where your syringe is at all times. Otherwise, who knows where the product is going. So
And
it's,
that,
it's really important to us.
and at your size, the risk is so great. I mean, you don't just have one or two injectors, you have a whole army. So I think the risk is so exponentially bigger than what we could even imagine just with the size that you have. They've got to all be awesome. Like, they got to all be great, be safe,
Yeah,
be effective.
and that's one of the challenges at scale, is like overcoming that fear, right? Because you have to continue to look at the same metrics, even though the N is going to go up, right? So if we're treating 10,000 patients in a month, there's going to be somebody that has, and we call it an adverse event, but it's really like a bruise or a complaint, or, it was a Tuesday and the sun wasn't out and their kid's baseball game was canceled, and, the receptionist gave them the eye, so like, anything that winds up on Yelp with less than 5 stars to me, as a business owner, is an adverse event, right? Like, we're very fortunate. We've never had like a true adverse event, but it's coming, right? I mean, so I'm a statistician at heart. You do enough cases, there you will get something. So, making sure that we're prepared for it, right? So, we call them Dr. Orange. So, if there ever were to be an occlusion, everybody knows to page Dr. Orange, and that sets off a cascade. Because what I don't want people running around the office yelling occlusion. So we train for that. Now, that's part of my fire department background is you do not rise to the level of the crisis. You fall to your level of training. So we constantly are bringing the offices together. We do huddles. We ask people what they want to learn. We use Trainual, which is a great platform where everything is in there. That's AI enabled now as well, so that they can communicate with almost like a trainer, and it'll pull data from our training, and we run drills. I think the best advice that I have, especially for mid-sized practices that are getting good rep support, is that when you're doing these trainings, whether it's internal or external, don't just make it an injection training, right? Like if you're coming in as a model at ProMD, you're going through the entire process. You're going to book an appointment. You're going to get a full consultation, even though we already know what we're doing. You're going to get the checkout experience, and you're going to give us feedback on it. Because if we're doing a free treatment on you or a discounted treatment, even though it's a training, why not make it a full dress rehearsal? We'll get all the staff involved in that experience so that it's a front training, it's a back training, it's a billing training, it's everything.
Love that. And you guys, I mean, you're doing so much marketing as well. I know you're a big AI guy, which we love AI here on the podcast. But how are you managing all of that? So, like from an organizational structure, like I know how I feel like I have a good idea how your injectors work, clinicians work, but like management. Obviously, you're not a physician or provider, so you're a dedicated CEO. Then what comes underneath of you? What's that layer look like?
So I have Mario, who's my chief growth officer. He's awesome. He manages all of anything that's independently owned or any of our internal growth is his domain. I have Lakin, who is my chief product officer. And my definition of the product again is very subjective. So she's responsible solely for monitoring the product. Like if I go to Lakin and I say, "How's our product today?" I expect her to know about our outcomes, about our experience, about our online ratings, just what is the overall thing that we are selling to the public and how is that going. Then I have Safa, who's a chief finance and data officer. She's like our data queen. Carla is our COO. She was a medical assistant for a decade with us, and now she oversees everybody else. And then we have our charity foundation, which has an executive director. And then obviously Dr. George is our CMO and founder. So, I'm lucky to have the best team in the world. Couldn't do it without them.
But you have a full C-suite. Like I think that's at a size like yours, if you don't have a full C-suite, you can't function. Like you got to have people who are in those jobs who can make decisions on their own, who have the knowledge of what's happening around you. Like you just can't, if you're a provider trying to be a manager and an owner and the adverse event person, it's not going to happen. Like it's just not possible. I agree with you.
I mean, it's funny, right? Because providers think that they can do that. I, as a business person, even if I went and got an MD now or, a PA or an NP, I would never in a million years think that I could provide and run a business. But on the flip side, I feel like providers do the hard part, which is the schooling, and then think that they can then have the time to run the business. And that's why, providers go gray early.
Well, I think what you mentioned, there's such a millimeter in experience and in the treatment part.
Yeah, like
there's no
trying to
room
divert
for
your
error.
focus.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I can't imagine looking at a spreadsheet for 2 hours and then popping in to try and give a patient experience. But the thing about growth is, you got to grow with your people. Right. So, recognizing people and promoting them along the way. Like we haven't, the only person that I brought in outside that wasn't with us from, either day one or year 3 at the latest is Mario, our chief growth officer, and he was my fraternity brother. So, the importance of finding and breeding excellent talent and retaining them. There's the Quantic MBA. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like an AI-enabled online 13-month MBA. It costs about $10,000. So anybody at the company who can get into that program, we pay for it. So, basically our whole C-suite has MBAs now from that. It's been a really good and beneficial program for getting getting people from the, dedicated, analyst or medical assistant or front desk to thinking and understanding even the language and jargon of an MBA has been helpful.
Well, I heard about it from your site or something that you had done. I read about it because I was like, I feel like I heard about
it's
that.
Great.
It's awesome.
I took it as a pilot because they had just kind of launched it, and I was looking for a way that I could offer, education to the team at a price that at the time we could afford, which was not much. So
well, I hear you.
For
but you know what I love about that
$800 a month.
800 a month. That's not horrible. I mean,
awesome for an MBA.
What I paid was a little bit more than that, Scott.
Yeah, no kidding.
But you know what I love about that though? Here, even at AR, we do CME money or CE money. So I want you to take something that you don't do in your job. Like if I'm going to pay for it anyway, like let's say project management course. If you're a project manager, I'm going
Yeah,
to pay for that. But if you're not and you're somewhere else and you're interested in that and you want to use your money to go take that course, by all means, take it.
I
I
love
think that's
this. This is great.
that's how you get people to be interested in other parts of your world and to cross functionally train on their own. And promotions would be impossible if they didn't learn other skills. Like we have a guy that just finished his black belt Sigma. He's a sales guy. He's a black belt in Six Sigma, and he's a freaking sales dude. Like, but he wants to learn about process so he can get better at sales and carry that into his next job in the company. I just think there's a part of that you got to give people a chance to learn. And if you don't
Yeah.
get mad when they don't learn. Like if you don't let them have a path, don't get mad if they don't grow. Like you got to help them. You got to push them and get them where they where they can grow and do more things. So I love the MBA. Wish I could afford
I
that
mean,
here. I would do it.
the biggest thing that I hear from people with attrition problems is that their staff leaves because they don't have room for growth, right? So, and how can you expect somebody to grow if you're going to keep them in the same role, right? In business, we call it the Peter principle, right? People will just get promoted to their highest level of incompetence and then eventually fail.
Or because of
So,
tenure they get promoted here. We don't believe in tenure. We don't think that matters. Like I don't care how long you've been here. If you're great, I'll promote you today. Like we don't do it a certain day of the year. We don't do it a certain year. It's like if you deserve a raise right now, whatever this is, July something, we're going to give it to you. Because I think people having to wait for this one magical day that happens with a performance review. Why is that day so special? I have no idea. Like it doesn't occur to me that it's just one day out of the year that you get promoted. I think that's just so insane. Or a certain year you hit 3 years now you get promoted. Why? Like what if you weren't any
yeah,
good?
yeah,
I just think it's
right.
crazy town. But we see it a lot
So,
here in our industry. Tech, it's a big thing in tech. But looking at your people and where they grow and what they're doing, like I know you are using AI a lot, and that's again passion of mine. Where does that fit into your scale to get all these people? Because I feel like you have such a giant scale of work just for you to get all these things all together and done. Where do you find it most useful for you as a practice, but also useful for you as a person managing a lot of tasks?
or you're
Loaded
talking
question.
specifically AI?
Yeah, like what AI tools are you like leaning on
Oh
every
man.
day?
So for people management, I really like this. There's this tool called Erudit. Um, Basically, it scans all company communications, doesn't look at like personal identifying data, but it'll identify themes, right? So, like if the Baltimore office is all talking about traffic and how they're late, I'll know that. Or if, there's a group of people that are, have a high burnout risk, it'll, deliver me that information and why they think it is based on, themes that are going on throughout the company. So I don't know who it is, but I know that it's a theme company wide or in this specific, geo, and it's something that my leadership team needs to address before the staff complains about it. Because what I find is that by the time the staff complains, they've had too much time to sit on it, and
Yeah.
so Erudit makes what, in my mind, the hardest part about being an executive is that, they'll come into my office or my, leadership team's office, and we have to give them an answer that satisfies them in about 15 seconds to a problem that they've been brewing for 3 months. And they've gone through every scenario in their head in the shower, cursing the answer that they think we're going to give. And now here we go. We have 15 seconds to digest the problem, understand how it fits into the greater picture, and solve it in a way that doesn't make them quit. Right? That's why executives get paid the big bucks, because that's the skill set. To have the poker face to look at somebody in the eye and know that you have 15 seconds to make a decision that's going to impact that person's career, right? Or by the time that you need to make it properly. So
And if
Erudit
you
is a
don't,
great
and
one
if
for
you
that.
don't, they're mad at you. If I don't make it right now, they're mad at me. Like how would I not
Oh my
know the answer?
goodness.
So yeah, I've been on the tail end of that a few times, Scott. And I don't know what the big bucks are. If you find the big bucks, you let me know. But I think what you just said, as any entrepreneur anywhere listening to this, that is the crux of it all. Is they've been thinking about this problem for 6 months, talking about it, getting their girlfriends all in on it, water cooler talk, and you just learned about it in that moment, and you better know a freaking answer. And if you don't, you're an idiot,
Yep.
and they don't trust you. Like that is like the quintessential example of the oh shit moment of my day every day, all the time. But
Yeah.
it's
And
true. You got to figure it out.
it's always something, it's so important to them, right? And I have this picture that I like to draw for my team where like if you're in a room and that room is on fire, the only thing that you can see is that room is on fire, right? You can't see that maybe the station is dealing with 10 other fires in 10 other houses. All you care about is your individual house on fire, right? And then above that, you can't see that fire, somewhere is necessary to make the clouds that are going to make rain, to keep the rainforest in another part, right? So, leadership is being able to look at the entire ecosystem and knowing which fires need attention, and also knowing that sometimes fires need to burn.
True.
So, Air data is great for that. Obviously, ChatGPT is like, not only my new therapist, but I like to prompt it to do all the things that an analyst team would have done for me. So, hey, I need a Porter's five forces analysis on the aesthetic industry for the next 3 years, or what are what's the economic outlook for comparatory spaces to aesthetics, right? I have a few friends of mine that are injectors in Brazil, and I know from experience that we're usually 6 to 9 months behind on consumer sentiment about the industry. So, they went through the war on filler about a year and a half ago, and they're on the tail end of it. So we're on the tail end of it now, about 6 months later. So, looking at that data, what I also find ChatGPT great for is new product evaluation. So, when a new product hits the market, I ask ChatGPT to scan Reddit from all the, scan Chinese Reddit, scan Australian Reddit, scan UK Reddit, give me a comparison of user sentiment without bias, right? So, we're usually the last to get these products. Why don't we take advantage of how they responded in other countries in terms of longevity or market positioning, or all the things that the reps come in and try and sell me on. I can come armed with empirical data from human beings that don't have skin in the game in comparative markets. So, that's obviously a big one.
Oh,
Our AI scheduler is great. Right now, we're using Holly and Nimbler, but we're switching. Call I came from before this. We're building out a fully AI integrated platform in Salesforce. And the goal there is to increase provider efficiency. So, when I look at our traditional schedulers in this space, even the AI ones, they can't factor in, actual appointment flow, right? So if you're, Tiphany booking an appointment for a BBL per se, and that's a 45-minute, appointment, but 15 minutes of that is spent numbing, why are we booking you for 45? So this AI is going to recognize appointment type and only schedule the provider's time for the actual block that the provider needs to be providing. So, increasing the amount of patients that our providers can see per hour and spend time doing what they enjoy, which is providing, not, waiting for their patient to be finished numbing. So, imagine being able to go from, okay, this patient is done numbing. I see them on my schedule. I'm in, and then immediately just carrying out your day doing procedures instead of all the other stuff. So, AI is enabling us to do that. We're putting in our own LLM, our own kind of GPT that's trained, so patients can communicate with that as a front line. So on the website, on scheduling, right? Being able to be like, hey, I want to schedule with Tiphany on Tuesday the 25th. What do you have available? No, I don't like any of those. Can you give me another one? Instead of what we do now, which is like, your appointment is on Tuesday, 10:25 at 7 p.m. Press C for confirm. So, I think that the way that human beings are interacting with technology and therefore businesses is changing, right? And being able to free up my front from being, scheduler worker bees to being human connection forming people in the practice is what I want. And that's what I think, all of business and medicine is going to go to. How can you build the most genuine human face-to-face interaction and maximize the time we get together using AI? Not using AI to replace humans or replace jobs or any of that stuff, but freeing up human beings' time to be able to human, right? Like imagine you walk into an office and instead of the receptionist picking up phones and scheduling, they're asking you if you need anything or how your weekend went, or they're sitting in, in the public space with you and kind of entertaining and building a connection to the practice and the brand, rather than, coming in and they got, 6 bobby pins out because they're on 2 phones.
or just not hearing the phone ring. I mean, if you've been to a busy
Yeah.
practice, oh my God, the waiting room. Like if you go to like a derm practice right now, I can't handle it. I can't stand the ringing constantly. It's so annoying. But I think what you just said is so important for people to distinguish. Let the humans go do human. I think AI should replace a lot of things. I think it's very viable that it will replace a lot of the non value add bullshit things we do every day, like scheduling someone on the phone. You don't need me to do that for you, right? We can train a model for that. We can train an agent. We can use
Oh my
IVR
gosh.
technology. There's just no need
Tiffany,
for a human to do this.
bless her heart. I had this woman yesterday who she could have been one of the Golden Girls. And she scheduled a meeting with me. She was trying to sell me some ad space for something. She scheduled a meeting with me. And this was a 15-minute meeting that she had scheduled with me. Turns out it was a meeting to find time to schedule me with the salesperson.
Oh, yeah.
So I had a meeting. I took 15 minutes out of my day that was blocked to have a meeting about scheduling a meeting. Like, bless your heart. Who has that kind of time? I wish, I wish that was my retirement job. Name was it's a
Same.
two name Betty Ann. So bless her heart. But I was like, Betty Ann, we can't do this going forward. I'm going to need to be able to schedule directly with whoever you need me to talk to.
Same. And a
But
lot of these systems are better than people. Like the average front desk person in a practice, they can't learn it all fast enough to be in the front desk role. If you have your own GPT, we have one here as well for all of our systems. We have a couple of them.
yeah,
You can just go ask questions and it tells you the answers. So if you're a chat agent for AR, I mean, you've got to know everything about everything to be a chat agent here. It takes forever to get good at this job. But they have all these tools now to back them up. So it's not always requiring us to teach them and to do all the hand holding from day one because they've got support
yes.
systems. And I think it's so important for your team to get better. Give them things to get better at. You can't expect them to stop their life and not see a patient until they're perfectly trained. You'll never get there.
You know, the power that it has to speed up their day, right? Like, because if you've managed people, you know that so many of the questions that they ask, you're like, okay, let me Google that for you, right? Or, oh, that's on page 17 of the company handbook. So being able to communicate in natural language, including whatever it is that, Gen Alpha is speaking, like how can I improve my Riz at work or whatever, but letting them type what they want as if they're communicating with a peer and spitting out a modeled reply in their vernacular. It speeds up the process. It makes it seamless, right? I have a rule at my practices that if you're going to work here, no matter how low your, role is, how entry level or how high, you better know everything on our website because nothing kills an experience or a deal faster than somebody on the phone reading the website and you don't know what they're talking about. So, being able to speed up that search process of, hey, I have a patient on the phone that's talking about X product. She wants to know if, other people like it. Can you give me 10 verified customer reviews from our database? Actually, we had a patient just last week who got this and she left us 5 stars. If you want to read her review, you can go to Google. Like that is a polished, credentialed answer that looks to the outside world like that person is up on their game. Like, wow, how does that receptionist remember that? Right? AI can help us to create superhumans or the perception of superhumans. And, we're in a perception industry.
We're in an I want it right now and it better be perfect industry. I think even here, looking at, your own GPT, if you know how you like to learn, then tell it who you are, what you like, and then say, give me back, take the website, digest it, and give it back to me in the way that I need to learn things. My audio, my visual, and I need graphs and charts. And I think you can just customize the experience. We couldn't do that. 5 years ago, we couldn't do that. We couldn't do anything custom, but now you can actually go so personalized and so custom, even for your clients and your patients in your database, your CRM. You can do so many just nuanced things you could never do before with AI. That I think it should replace a lot of things that are like your SDR. Betty Ann, she doesn't need to have a job doing that anymore. Find a better job for Betty Ann. That's a silly job that wastes your time and her time. Like there are things that I think we're quickly seeing those things fall apart too.
And I think we're getting a pendulum swing where it's forcing people to be more genuine and human in their human-to-human conversation, right? So I wholeheartedly agree with you that as many processes and mundane tasks as possible, can be replaced by AI.
Get rid of them. Yeah.
I don't know about you, but if I get an email with an M dash in it and I know it's AI written, it just doesn't land with me. So it forces us as leaders to not rely on that tool for our personal communication. And I refuse to use, ChatGPT for editing, writing, or any of that stuff because it's not for me, right? And I think my staff appreciates that, and our patients do too. So it's funny how it's evolved because when it first came out, I thought it was the coolest thing since sliced bread that it could write for me. And then as we've gone through this AI transition and people can recognize AI writing, and you realize that the purpose of having it write was to get an outcome, and that outcome is no longer gotten because it's now recognized that it's AI. So you have to go back to being personal in order to get the outcome that you want, whether it's, adoration or, understanding or, whatever human emotion you're trying to pull out. It's just been such an interesting ride to see how these little LLMs, which are really just predictive texts, like if you really break AI down, it's the same technology that our iPhone uses to help us finish a word, just on a much larger, better trained scale. So, I think we're in for a really interesting ride as to where we're going to go How do we build connections with people? Are we going to be offering improv comedy classes at Aesthetic Next for providers because the procedure, is on lockdown, and in order to get patients to come, they want to build connections and be funny. I was at the AI conference in San Francisco, and that was literally what one of the tax accountants was doing. He was bringing in improv comedy coaches for his accountants because the human connection is what drove the business, and the AI was able to do all the taxes.
I agree with you. It's going to shift the load of your job. Imagine being a technology person. Like in our world, it's everywhere. It's chaos, and we're vibe coding and doing all these fun things. I love that word, vibe coding. We've been doing vibe
Yeah,
coding for a long time, just not with an AI helper. But it's interesting, Scott. What I hate about it most is I use M dashes every day. I'm a writer. I love to write. I write. I've written my whole life. I would write 10 books if I could, and I use a freaking M dash all the time because it's for emphasis. And now I can't use it ever again, and I'm so pissed
no,
about it.
no, you cannot. I don't even know how to make them. That's the difference between you and me.
You just have to hit the button and dash dash. But I use them all the time. But I think if you're a writer, I love it to give me ideas
Yeah.
and prompt me and give me, if I can't figure out like things to name stuff, like little cheeky names and fun little pops and things like that, it's so good for that. But I agree with you. If you're writing long form content, you got to be cautious. And I think our team here, even in AR, I'm like, guys, you got to read it first. Like, you can't copy and paste. Like, it says things that are crazy.
Yeah.
Getting them in the beginning to really learn that was hard. But now I think they've all been burned enough. Now they
Yeah.
know.
I mean, it's good for external facing copy if it's human edited. But I caution people all the time, just be careful about trying to build human relations with AI content
Agreed.
because I don't think like that. Like when I read something and I'm like, I know you could have just said okay, but now I had to read 3 paragraphs. I'm like, and it still didn't say anything. It just sounded good. That doesn't make me want to follow you.
Yeah, I have to tell my no word salad. Do not do the word salad. Make it, brief
No,
and
my
brilliant.
people are now, prompting it to incorporate some human error so that it can't be run through, things that tell you if it's AI or not. So
When I was
I'll
doing
tell
my
you, I'm not, yeah.
and in your MBA program, I could have used this for our dissertation. I could have really used a lot of help. But
Oh my
anyway,
goodness,
as we kind of
I
wrap up
can't
here,
imagine
oh,
parenting in the AI age is going to
oh,
be wild.
oh, my child's at 12 years old. He uses it for everything all the time. Everything's like, Mom, just put it in chat. It'll tell you. Like it's a verb. But a question for you before we go. I know we're probably at our hour here, but you do a lot with nonprofit work, and I do want to talk about that. I think it's really, really important. You guys
Yeah,
have made space for that in your practice, your revenue, where you put your money. And I think it's such a cool thing. I want to hear a bit more about that and like what the decision was, kind of behind that to make that part of ProMD and make it such a big part of your practice.
yeah. So, my personal kind of guiding philosophy has always been that if you can help somebody, help them, right? And my grandfather brought me up on he used to say, be honest, tell the truth, and give to charity, right? And I was a snotty kid one time, teenager, and I was like, isn't being honest and telling the truth the same thing, right? And he explained it like everybody does when they talk about dishonest people using a used car salesman. So sorry to any used car salesman listening, but if you ask a used car salesman how the car is, he can tell you the truth without being honest, right? It has great tires, it has a great sunroof, but it might not have a steering wheel. But if he omits that, he's not being honest because what you're really asking him is this a good purchase? So being honest, telling the truth, and then that last part is giving to charity. And I've always, you know, felt that if we as small business owners, our greatest power is to impact the people that we interface with, and it's not just our employees, it's not just our customers, but it's the communities we serve, right? And in a free market economy, like we like to, believe that we're in and thrive, in theory, if we all gave, the best charities would rise to the top, and we wouldn't need as many social programs and services. If everybody that was responsible for deciding where to give based on what they thought was the best, the world would be a better place. And I make sure that permeates through ProMD and through every business that I interface with. It's a requirement in order for me to operate. Is that we give a certain portion of time, energy, and effort to the communities where we're located and the greater good. And through that, it's opened up more doors in my life personally and also professionally, and for this business than I ever thought imaginable. Right, we've opened up the industry to a whole new segment of people because there are people that learn about ProMD Health when they are 5 years old at their PTA because we sponsored a basket or we sponsored the bake sale table. and they don't know what we do. They don't know who we are, and that's by design. It's not ProMD aesthetics. It's not ProMD, hormones. It's ProMD health, right? And um, you will know who ProMD is before you know that you need us, because we're so involved in your active community. And my dream for ProMD was always that if we close, I don't want people to miss their aesthetic provider. I want them to miss their community partner. And I think that is part of that experience and that loyalty, and it's a duty that we have to those that we serve, both personally and professionally.
I love that. What are some of the things that you guys do? What initiatives are you doing in your communities?
Oh man, like all kinds of stuff. So, you know, it starts in the office. There's a budget through ProMD Helps for both good and bad. I always say that like our aesthetic appointments are half aesthetics, half psychiatry, right? Because if you really think about it, it makes sense. These people are opening up to us about things about themselves that they haven't liked, that maybe they were bullied on, bullied in middle school, and now they're an adult and have some money and they want to get it fixed. So they start talking to us about their insecurities. It's natural that they're going to open up about a divorce or their kid's wedding or all the other stuff in their life. You build this immediate bond. So ProMD Helps allows us, our floor level people, to, if they hear a really sad or a really good story, or they just know a patient needs something, we can provide it to them. They'll, that manager has a budget that is approved, and they can send off, flowers for, their cousin's sister's cat's quinceanera, or their kid that got into high school, or they're, going through a divorce and they said that they haven't been able to cook because they've been so miserable, and we send them a catering tray. Just stuff like that. That's our immediate impacts local fund. Then we do our community partner stuff, which is like every local community. So your PTAs, your 5Ks, the local golf tournament for, the bartender that died. Basically, anybody can come and submit, a mini kind of application, or they can ask a staff member to promote it for them when we talk about it at a meeting. And then we have our larger national programs, which is like American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. We do a lot of stuff with the Center for Hope and the Jimmy's Famous Fund. And those are like larger grants that people can apply for, or they just get involved with us at other events, and we sponsor them. Last year, we bought an electronics detection dog for Operation Underground Rescue. We participated in sending some funds for that. And what that dog does is it travels around the country, and when they do raids on sex offenders or pedophiles, the dog will go through the house and sniff for hidden hard drives for evidence to be used in court to make sure that they stay away. So we thought that was really cool, so we contributed to that. It's really kind of the beauty of being an entrepreneur, right? It's our money, so we can take it in any direction we want. That's why we don't take outside funding. The staff thinks it's cool, and we do our homework and check them out on GuideStar. We give, and that's my purpose beyond providing the best aesthetic outcomes in the entire planet.
I love that. So I love all of that. First of all, that dog, how freaking cool is that?
Super
But I
cool,
love
right?
that,
I'd never heard of that. I
like,
was like, you know what? That
that's
makes a lot of sense. Because
super
small
needed too.
departments can't afford, such a specialized asset. So they fly this dog around the country. What a like rock star job for that dog,
I know.
right? And
Well,
then I got my husky on the couch. He's probably waiting for me now to feed him a sloppy Joe
yeah, same. My
after a hard
Yorkie's
day's
like,
work protecting the house.
from the squirrels. But I love that you got your floor people doing things like at a smaller scale, all the way up to these big like national grants. Like such a cool opportunity for your staff to find more value in their work than just the work. I think that's also part of being happy at your job. Is that
Yeah,
there's
and
things tied
it
to it.
spawned from just hearing them talking in the coffee room, like in our staff room. And I'm thinking to myself, how can you go from hearing that story to now, knock, knock, hi, and pop into the next room and provide a patient experience that patient deserves, not knowing, that patient shouldn't know that you just came from a tough conversation, right? Because that patient is here for the ProMD experience. So how can I expect you to just shed that off? I think it gives them a nice outlet to be able to provide, oh man, that was tough, but at least I can do this. Because we're in healthcare, we're helpers.
Or be able to help because you want to help, and maybe personally you couldn't help, but now you can because you've got the
Yeah.
backing of your employer to help you. I just think such a cool thing, and I agree with you. The communities that you serve, people underestimate the value of being in the community and being part of the community. It will turn, I think, huge ROI for any business because people, they just come to know you and they come to trust you and love you because you're part of the fabric of their being. And so I think it's such a great opportunity for people to connect at work, to connect with other things bigger than themselves, but also to find a place for you as an entrepreneur to have an outlet, because it is a stressful job. I know it's a stressful job, and you can pour
Yeah.
your heart into things that
And
aren't
I
just
mean,
this.
that was one of the initial things that Dr. Gavrila and I, bonded over when we got together, was the importance of, of doing good, right? And building something that, means something, right? And that should be the goal of every entrepreneur or every business owner, is to own something meaningful, right? More important than owning something valuable is to own something meaningful. Value will come.
Well, and it is value, right? It's like it's those riches that you can't put your finger on. I think that they're
Yeah.
so impactful in our lives. But we've been on for an hour, which is shocking, because I could talk to you all day long. I mean, really, you deliver, Scott. People say that you know so much about business. You absolutely deliver. And I think the Gain Business Group has you touring the country all the time, giving lectures, giving the Gain Business Art Tour, the whole treatment.
I always say, have bad jokes, we'll travel.
Well, if it comes to your community and Scott's there, definitely go. We'll go to Gain Business anyway. We love our Gain family, but for sure go if you're there. And I think you'll be at Aesthetic Next in I think it's like 4 weeks, 5.
I'm so excited.
Not enough weeks away, but you're going to be at Aesthetic Next finally. I'm so happy that you're going to be there. And you did the pod and that. Like, this is the best year of my life right now, because, I mean, you're here twice. It's shocking, but you'll be there doing all kinds of things, and seek him out, go find him. You will learn so much, but also just to look at your business. I follow you guys obviously on Instagram, to watch what you're building, and that it's staying so true to its core, and it's staying consistent, and the branding and everything is staying the way it should, and it's not sort of going out of control. As you see things happen when you scale, it's a testament to your leadership and what you and George are both built. I just think it's really, really revolutionary. So I'm a huge fan of yours, and I can't wait to see you in September. But tell us how to find you on social media, and also website, any information you can.
Yeah, I mean, ProMD Health. Instagram is ProMD Health. My personal Instagram is @Melamed Official. And, as everybody knows, I'm happy to share information. If you need to get in contact with me or have a question, scott@ProMDHealth.com, and I will get back to you however I can and with whatever I can.
You're a brave man. You are a brave man putting that on the interwebs. My email's everywhere too. I feel you. But, well, guys, it's been a great episode with Scott, and I feel like I want to go out and do some charitable work, and also go get some cool AI tools and do all the things. So I appreciate your time today. And yes, fangirl status is still intact. All good.
Oh, I'm your fan too. So,
well, I will see all of you guys next week. And Scott, thanks again for coming on. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening to another episode of For the Record. This podcast is not intended to provide legal or medical advice. It's for entertainment, education, and information purposes only. For more information on this week's guest, or to get started with Aesthetic Record, email us at info@aestheticrecord.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more fresh perspectives on disrupting the status quo and surviving in the aesthetics industry.